You probably don't remember the version of Counter-Strike you've started on. Not the number, not the update, not the patch notes. You remember where you were. A cramped LAN cafe, rows of monitors glowing in the dark, a shared family computer, waiting your turn while someone stood behind you, after school, late at night, headphones half working, someone always watching over your shoulder. Counter-Strike didn't arrive loudly. It didn't announce itself. It didn't introduce characters. It didn't explain the rules. It just stayed. You didn't boot it up expecting anything meaningful. But somehow, without ever demanding your attention, it became something you never really left. There was no moment where the game told you who you were. No voice explaining your role. No story guiding your decisions. No system protecting you from mistakes. You were given a weapon, a timer, a space. And then, nothing. Nothing happened for long stretches of time. And yet, somehow, everything felt like it mattered. You learned quickly that Counter-Strike didn't reward urgency. It rewarded restraint. You learned that confidence didn't save you, and impatience punished you immediately. You learned that waiting, doing nothing, was often the hardest part of the round. Other games taught you how to play. Counter-Strike waited to see who you were. It didn't soften failure. It didn't explain it away. It didn't make excuses for you. If you lost, it was yours. That kind of trust is rare. And once you felt it, it was impossible to forget. Because Counter-Strike wasn't built to impress you. It was built to endure you. Your mistakes, your confidence, your impatience, your growth. It stayed the same while you changed. And that's why, even now, you don't remember the version you started on, but you remember exactly how it made you feel. Every time Counter-Strike changed, people panicked. Not quietly, not subtly, openly. Source didn't feel right. Go didn't feel right. Even CS2 at first didn't feel right. And on the surface, the complaints sounded technical. Movement, gunplay, graphics, and even the lighting. But those were never the real issue. The fear wasn't about mechanics. It was about dilution. Players weren't protecting a game. They were protecting a feeling. The feeling that mistakes mattered. that rounds mattered, that nothing was going to save you if you messed up. In Counter-Strike, pressure was never optional, so every change felt dangerous. Because if the game softened ever so slightly, that pressure could disappear. And once pressure is gone, so is the identity. That's why every new version felt like a threat. Not because players hate change, but because they understood how fragile consequence really is. Maps changed. Engines changed. Lighting changed. But what the game asked of you didn't. Rounds were limited. Time was unforgiving. And mistakes carried weight. Long after the moment passed. There were no abilities to reset momentum. No characters to absorb blame. No systems designed to soften the outcome. If something went wrong, there was nowhere to hide it. You were accountable for every decision you made. Every peak, every step, every second you waited or didn't. The game never rushed you forward. It waited to see whether you could live with the consequences of acting too soon, or not acting at all. You weren't rewarded for confidence. You were rewarded for restraint, for understanding space, for understanding timing, for knowing when doing nothing was the right decision. The demand never changed. Not because it was old-fashioned, but because it worked. Because the moment consequence disappears is the moment the experience collapses. And Counter-Strike was never willing to make that trade. Counter-Strike never tried to tell you who mattered. There were no heroes written into the game. No lore to explain what you were part of. No moments designed to be remembered. So players filled the space themselves. Not because they were asked to, but because the game left room for it. A clutch only mattered because of how much silence came before it. A moment only lasted because it could have ended everything. Nothing was guaranteed. Nothing was protected. That uncertainty is what gave meaning to the smallest actions. A missed shot, a held angle, a second too early, or too late. Over time, those moments stopped being isolated. They became shared. Stories passed between players. Rounds replayed in memory. Matches remembered not for how they looked, but for how they felt to survive. Counter-Strike didn't create culture by design. It allowed culture by refusing to interfere. And when a game trusts its players that much, they don't just play it. They carry it forward. Most games try to explain themselves. They introduce heroes. They point to the moments that matter. They guide you toward the stories. They want you to remember. But Counter-Strike never did that. It gave you a space, a timer, and the freedom to fail. Nothing was framed. Nothing was protected. Nothing was softened. What stayed with you wasn't a story the game told. It was a story you lived. The silence before a round began. The weight of a single decision. The understanding that nothing was guaranteed. Every action carried consequence. Every mistake had a cost. And every moment of restraint meant something because of what could be lost. Counter-Strike never tried to impress you. It trusted you. It trusted you to find meaning without being told where to look. It trusted you to remember without being shown what mattered. And in that trust, something rare happened. The game didn't just survive. It became familiar. Not because it changed with the times, but because it stayed true to what it asked of you. Time passed. Technology moved forward. Trends came and went. But the experience remained. Quiet. Unforgiving. Honest. Counter-Strike didn't need to become louder. It didn't need to become bigger. It only needed to stay itself. And that's why, after all these years, it didn't just endure. It stayed the same. In all the ways that mattered.